pain is a very intelligent messaging system. When you start to listen to pain, what will happen is that you understand the amount of pain you have is equivalent to how uncomfortable what is underneath is to integrate.
I was in my yoga class and we were stretching the psoas muscle. And so I didn't connect things at the time, but suddenly I felt very angry and it felt very weird. And then my yoga teacher was like, what's wrong with you? He noticed I'm not okay. And I was like, I don't know, I feel very angry. And he was like, it's okay, it's because you're stretching the psoas muscle.
What does being a woman, being a daughter? So disruption in being a daughter, disruption in being a girlfriend, a wife, and a mother. All of these roles, they show up through the uterus, and on the other side, the prostate, the roles of being a son, a husband, and a father. All of these show up, and especially the relationship to the father is very, very important.
Hello, my beautiful friends. My guest for today is exceptional, and I feel very lucky that I was able to carve some time to record with him during his visit in Dubai. He's an expert in the field of emotional anatomy, and he will help us today understand the link between the physical and the emotional. He will help us read our body like a book and understand the language of the organs and how to really get rid of our pent-up emotions, whether this with a laugh, with a cry, or even with a scream. He now teaches his technique to hundreds of people to create this rebel effect, which will help so many people get rid of their chronic pain for real. And today, we will understand the link between the emotions and the diseases, and we will go into this in details. David, welcome in Dubai and welcome to the show.
It's truly an honor to be here. I was just invited to Dubai today on a TV show. It's going to be aired tonight, so it's truly an honor to speak to even more people like yourself.
Something like national TV, you won't really find these topics being discussed on national TV. So it's really great to know there is this interest that is happening with emotions and understanding emotions. And since you are an expert in emotional anatomy, so can we start, just help us understand what is emotional anatomy and how did you get there?
Yes, you can take many different words. You can take psychosomatics, you can talk about emotion release, but all that it points to is a phenomenon that essentially what we notice is that mental health and physical health is the same thing. There's no difference. What you experience with your entire body. So all of your emotions, all of your experiences, they imprint themselves onto your body. And all of your diseases also create emotional states. So there's no difference between emotional issues and chronic diseases. Every chronic disease has an emotional component. When we understand that, we need a fundamentally new framework of approaching a human being.
Yeah.
Not just approaching a human being like a doctor and seeing all these diseases and then having maybe protocols or some medication to support them. Or also not like a psychotherapist to just look at the childhood and do talk therapy with them. But to really see the whole human being as one unified system, understand its environment, its being, and that it's a feeling being on the inside, and really see the human being for who they are on the inside. And that's where we get into a realm where a really powerful transformation can happen. And this is the realm that we can call emotional anatomy, we can call psychosomatics.
Beautiful. And you mentioned something that I found very fascinating, which is that you were like, it's not just the, let's say, the old paradigm of a certain emotion is in a vaguely in a certain area, but more like it can be very specific. So specific emotion can also be found in specific areas of the body. So you can map the emotion to the body.
Absolutely. So scientifically, where we're at, we understand that stress is a major contributor to disease. Major. People die of lifestyle-related diseases, which stress is a huge part of. But stress is kind of an umbrella term. It doesn't really mean anything. Stress doesn't isn't really defined very much. But what is we refer to is emotional stress. So when you're stressed, you're having an emotional reaction. You're probably being triggered or you're being pressured. That's an emotional reaction. And depending on the frequency of stress, what you're having, what is stressing you? Are you coming from a breakup? Are you having a fight with your mom? Are you trying to do public speaking? Those are radically different
Yeah.
stresses. So it makes sense that these different stresses affect different regions of the body, different brain networks, and different nervous system networks. And so they affect different areas of the body. Science has not mapped out yet completely what these different areas are, but we can already, from empirical studies, conclude that people feel different emotions in different areas. If we go deeper into empirics, traditional Chinese medicine, for example, started beginning studying this, how different organs, for example, the lung stores grief or the liver stores anger, that
Yeah.
this can happen. But there's much, much more when we uncover and study this phenomena on how the different areas of the body relate with our emotions.
And from your experience, what is the, let's say, most common emotions and how do they manifest in the body?
Yeah, so usually we talk when I talk about emotions, we're talking about sadness and anger as the main emotion, and then we also that those are like the main emotions that people struggle with. So there's actually two types of people. Usually, you have people that are very more easy to express sadness.
Yeah.
You could sometimes say collectively more women. They're
Yeah.
easily
I was literally
crying.
about to say I'm more comfortable with sadness than anger. Yeah.
Absolutely, because sadness is associated with getting empathy and being okay versus anger. If somebody's screaming, who's gonna come to support you? Nobody's gonna come. People are
Yeah.
gonna take a step back, right? Because anger has this destructive nature to it. But then there's people who are more easily getting angry. They don't really get sad; they instantly get angry, and so it's a very interesting phenomenon
I would
because
assume, is it opposite in men? Like they express more better anger than
I
sadness?
would say the tendency is there because of the conditioning around being a
Yeah.
man, being strong, and all of it. But it
Yeah.
applies to both
To
genders.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people they express more sadness easily, and some people more anger easily. And the interesting part is underneath sadness is usually anger. Underneath anger is usually sadness. So we have someone who is really often crying, that's not a release for them. They're not transforming when they cry more. They transform when you really bring them deeper into their anger. That's what I've observed with my clients, as well with the angry people. The anger people, they don't need an anger release. They need to be able to open up and be vulnerable enough to tap into their sadness and release from that place. So these are the main emotions that we consider to be a prominent epidemic in our society.
That's fascinating. And there is something very interesting that you have mentioned, which was the tonic muscles versus another type of muscles in the body.
Yes,
And how is that most of the pain, actually, the emotional pain, goes into the tonic muscles?
absolutely. Like there's two types of muscles. You sometimes some people know them as fast twitch or slow twitch. We
Yeah.
call them tonic and phasic muscles. Tonic
Yeah.
muscles are marathon muscles. So they are the muscles that hold day and night. They hold tension. They keep on holding you. They need to because they support your structure. They support your posture. They support your body in its functioning. But phasic muscles, however, are more connected with active movements. So this is the muscles that you want to kind of grow in the gym. So you're going in the biceps, you're exhausting that muscles. But tonic muscles, you don't really want to exhaust them because they're holding you upright. They're supporting you day in and day out. They're sometimes small muscles, sometimes a little bit bigger, but they're very contractile, and this means that they are constantly under contraction, and that contraction costs the body energy. When I talk about energy, I don't mean like metaphysical energy. I mean calories. It costs calories for the body to keep these muscles under contraction, and because it costs calories, sugars, oxygen, the body is wasting energy that
Yeah.
could be used for other things because they're holding these muscles. They hold on to stress that they can hold for decades. So something you experienced 10, 20, 30 years ago could be showing up in the tonic musculature, which is
Yeah.
the jaw, which is the chest muscles, which is the psoas muscle, which is the deep hip muscle, right?
Yeah.
And many other muscles in the body that are chronically holding your stress. And this shows up when you work with people on the table, for example. You start working with them, and these are the muscles that when you are a massage therapist or musculoskeletal
Yeah.
therapist, oftentimes clients come in and say, "Oh, you always know exactly which spots to press."
Mm.
It's actually no miracle. It's always the tonic muscles. These are the holding muscles. The trapezius, for example, the muscle up here that everyone wants to get worked on when you get lay down first on a
Yeah.
massage. That's a tonic muscle. That is a muscle that holds statically for sometimes decades.
Such an energy leak, really. So anyone who's feeling physically, like not necessarily exerting actual physical effort, but feels always tired, it could be actually that.
Absolutely. So we can even see that different brain networks in trauma, for example. Trauma is an experience that is overwhelming. So when life is too much and you cannot
Yeah.
process it, then what the body is essentially doing in the state of overwhelm is it's not feeling emotions. So that means emotions do not get finished. They don't process and they don't process through. And what happens is how does this emotional movement get interrupted? Well, we can see that different brain networks, they start to go from a synchronistical firing pattern where they fire at the same time, and they start to slowly go into an unsynchronistic firing pattern, asynchronistic. So that means that they don't communicate as much. And when they don't communicate as much, again, what does the body do? It costs more calories for the body to stay in a state of unsynchronicity. So this is essentially what's happening on a neuroscientific level, is that these brain networks, they're not syncing anymore. This is how the body is disconnecting itself, from the parts that couldn't finish feeling. And that, of course, taxes the body. It takes away our focus, it takes away our energy. And so we're literally like ancient cultures, shamanic cultures would say that a part of your soul left your body.
Yeah.
Well, it's literally part of
It's
your
field
brain is gone.
associated, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I have a very interesting story now that you were mentioning it. I was in my yoga class and we were stretching the psoas muscle. And so I didn't connect things at the time, but suddenly I felt very angry. And anger is not an emotion that I typically feel. Like it actually makes me worry. Where is my anger? And it felt very weird. And then my yoga teacher was like, "What's wrong with you?" He noticed I'm not okay, and I was like, "I don't know. I feel very angry." And he was like, "It's okay. It's because you're stretching the psoas muscle, and sometimes this happen." But I went back home. I researched it. Amazing. Now I know, but I don't know what can I do with this information. Okay, now I have anger. Now what?
Absolutely. So the psoas is a muscle that contracts evolutionary in all mammalian
Yeah.
animals. So when they enter into a flight response, so when they have to run away from a predator, for example, a gazelle running away from a lion, for example, you can see that they contract their psoas, and after they're back in safety, the psoas, their body starts vibrating and shaking, releasing the trapped energy, the flight energy, essentially there. What I have observed from my clients is that the psoas muscle is specifically tied to this flight response, meaning it's tied to victimhood. It's tied to the situations in our life where we made ourselves much, much smaller than who we really are. And so it makes sense that when you start opening up the
Yeah.
fascia and the muscle itself and it starts loosening, you come out of a flight response and turn back into your dignity, into your sense of integrity. How is integrity felt in the body? Every time someone steps over your integrity, an anger response is created in your body. Every single time you're violated, an anger response is created in your physiology. It's firing. It's just that most people have dissociated themselves from anger, so they're not aware that they're holding anger. So every single time that happens, their body is actually saying, "Oh, can I show you this anger? Can you feel this anger? No, you can't. You're not ready for this." And so the body gets tighter and tighter, specifically areas like the liver, like the psoas, for example, could be reacting to this. The jaw can be reacting to this. Tightening those muscles. Why? Because the muscles themselves are a way of the body regulating impulses. So sensations and impulses of the body are regulated and inhibited, regulated down by creating more tension in the muscles. So this is how the body naturally defends against uncomfortable experiences.
So basically, this could be manifest in like in pain format, but also in diseases.
Absolutely. Chronic pain is a big phenomenon. Chronic pain, with pain, when we look at it, pain is not a sign that something is damaged in the body. That's what many people believe. Pain is a is your neurons firing. It's a sensitivity of your body showing up. When we are in pain, it can be a good thing. Most people associate pain with something bad. But pain doesn't show up when we are inside of the challenge where the pain is coming from. This is very important. So you're having a fight with your boyfriend, you're having a troublesome relationship, something at work. The pain doesn't show up when you have the actual trouble. The pain shows up when you're going back into safety, when you're reaching home, when you're sitting down on the couch.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Actually, I think yesterday you mentioned this on your Instagram, which I found you were. I think you were talking about migraines,
Exactly.
and that how you start getting that moving from the stress to the relaxation.
Absolutely.
Can you please share that?
Absolutely. So essentially, my girlfriend started to have a migraine, and everything was going really well. We were in this amazing beach club. The sun is shining, but she starts having a migraine. This is very common because the body essentially doesn't start the healing process when it's in flight mode itself. So only when the body is coming back into this safety, it starts the repairing process in the body. So this repairing process is also connected with this pain response. Why? Because when you are repairing, you're going into inflammation. Inflammation in the body is the physical body, the immune system response to repairing, to cleaning up what has been damaged. And inflammation is then starting to come, and with inflammation also comes pain.
Yeah.
And so what also happens is that as you're down regulating yourself back into safety, your body is then prepared to actually introduce and feel the uncomfortable emotions that you didn't have the time to feel when you were in activity. So you enter into a deeper sense of in a deeper psychological state when you're in safety. And from the depth of your psychological safety, you are becoming aware of what is emotionally in your body. And those emotions, they create the contraction and the pain. And here's a good understanding. So it's not exactly that an emotion causes the pain. It's always a fear of an emotion that causes the pain.
Oh,
so the
God,
fear
that's
response
strong.
is the stress response that we talked about. This is scientifically researched. The stress response creates contractions, cytokines, sympathetic activation, and creates those negative effects on the body. And so the fear of emotion that you're having starts to create more and more of that stress response, adrenaline secretion, and all of that. But what is really good to understand, when we are dealing with pain, when you're at home, you're listening to this, you think, okay, pain, how do I understand pain? Pain is a very intelligent messaging system. When you start to listen to pain, what will happen is that you understand the amount of pain you have is equivalent to how uncomfortable what is underneath is to integrate. So the pain is the surface of an emotional process and a deep emotional aspect of yourself that wants to be integrated. The more painful this process is, the more painful the physical pain is, the deeper space, time, and integration the emotional components need in order to be integrated. But also, the deeper the potential will be. So it's in the end a win
Like how
situation.
far you can go, literally, because it's like there is this gap between you and, let's say, the great version of yourself. So it tells you your great potential once you just get rid of this.
Absolutely. Every disease, every emotional blockage, we might think of like, I want to get rid of this blockage. I want to get rid of my disease. I want to get rid of my skin problems. Yeah, of course, we all want to get rid of the symptom. We all want to be symptom free. But what we don't understand is that our body...
If the seed is there, it will come back, yeah.
And not only will it come back, it's a gift. In the end, it's a
Yeah.
gift. In the end, it's trying to teach us something about ourselves. It's trying to teach that there is a component, endometriosis, for
Yeah.
example. This is something a lot of people in Middle Eastern.
Can we please talk about that? Because I'm
Absolutely.
sure a lot of people would like to know about this, especially just as you mentioned, a lot of females in the Middle East suffer from endometriosis.
Absolutely. I work a lot of here in the Middle East with women, and what we'll always have almost is a complex of lots and lots of suppressed anger. Anger is associated with inflammation. Endometriosis is an inflammatory autoimmune response. So it means there's an inflammation in the skin, which is also called the endometrium, inside of the uterus. This skin is sometimes found outside of the uterus, but it's connected with inflammatory processes causing pain inside of the uterus and around. And this is what we call endometriosis. And inflammation in that area, the reproductive organ, the uterus, the place where we all come from, right,
Yeah.
is a sacred place in a way that it's where humans are created, where we all
Yeah.
went through. It's
Yeah.
incredible,
Life
and
force, really.
it's life
Beautiful.
force. It's incredible, but the problem is that this relationship to the uterus that is in women, the relationship to womanhood.
Oh, ouch.
I'm opening
Yeah.
something up here, right? So
Yeah.
globally, the relationship to womanhood
Yeah.
is problematic. Women, mothers have not been honored in the way they should have. What does that mean? They've been not treated in the full dignity of who they are. They haven't treated themselves that way. So they repress anger. Like I said, anger again is the violation of boundaries, the violation of your integrity. Every time that happens, your body is activating anger. And so when that anger doesn't find expression, when you are violated for being a woman in a sense of like you got your boundaries crossed or you don't feel respected by someone, man or woman, doesn't matter, but you don't feel respected, that stores itself. And usually when you get endometriosis, it's not just that your life is affected, but we're talking about the life of your mother, your grandmother, and so on. Because also the stem cells that make you are already in the uterus of your grandmother. So you are evolutionary a product of your ancestors. Evolution.
Yeah,
This
of
is not something.
course.
This is not something spiritual. This is
Yeah,
basic. This is
100% genetics.
this is just
Really,
genetics.
evolution. Yeah, totally.
And same goes. Very
Yeah.
very human. Just very basic
Yeah.
things. So of course your emotions and your protective patterns
Yes.
are also inherited.
Yeah, the good and the bad.
The good and the bad.
Yeah.
And part of that protective pattern is the blockage that can manifest as endometriosis. So it's an inflammation response, often connected with anger. Often women who don't honor their boundaries fully. And once they do that, once they express those boundaries, once they release that anger, once they reclaim their full womanhood and their integrity in their womanhood, the endometriosis, the symptoms can go away.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, shamelessly, there are two other conditions I think will be very interesting to discuss because they are like I hear them a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people will be just interested to know the emotion behind it. So, one is also thyroid conditions in women because I think it's quite common.
Yes.
And the other one is the prostate in men. So we
Absolutely.
touched base on that as well.
Beautiful. Let's go with thyroid. Thyroid is
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. What I've observed with clients who I help with thyroid issues, be it Hashimoto's, overregulated or underregulated thyroid, overactive, is very similar. What the condition is, especially with Hashimoto's, you have this
Yeah.
strong transgenerational component. Also, you look in the family line. They're usually an expression of the traumas and unprocessed protective patterns of the parents and grandparents. Thyroid is very straightforward. It's really about suppressing one's own greatness. It's when people don't have the space to be fully seen.
I'm very emotional because I have Hashimoto. So when you're saying this, it's just it touches the chord.
Yes, and let's go deeper here a little bit. You are stepping into that greatness. You're stepping into that greatness. You're showing yourself. You're doing that. You're walking that path. And this is the potential that you've inherited. You've inherited all the fear about stepping and showing yourself for who you truly are. But also you inherit then the overcoming of that, So in that way, you become the prayers of your ancestors. And what I mean with that, without sounding too spiritual,
Yeah.
your ancestors have painful moments where they wish, I want life to be better for myself and for others. I wish it would be
Yeah.
better. And in that moment, this wish for something better is also in our biology. And this wish is in the end who you become. You feel that wish, you feel that desire for freedom, that desire for authenticity, this
Yeah.
desire for expression. You're living that. So I want to give respect for
Thank
you
you.
for that. And when you fully honor that, when you fully unravel that process,
Yeah.
that's when those symptoms become a messenger, and then the disease becomes actually your stepping stone to your next part of your evolution.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. And the prostate?
So my father has prostate cancer,
Mm.
and my father has been very hesitant of allowing myself to work with him. But it's very interesting. Prostate is also very straightforward. And the reproductive organs are very simple. So the female reproductive organs, the uterus, are is about feminine identity. So it means about
Masculine identity.
being around being a woman, the uterus. So what does being a woman, being a daughter? So disruption in being a daughter, disruption in being a girlfriend, a wife, and a mother. All of these roles, they show up through the uterus, and on the other side, the prostate, the roles of being a son, a husband, and a father. All of these show up, and especially the relationship to the father is very, very important. You will find when you open up the history of someone with prostate issues that there is something like a disruption to the father line. There's a huge, usually a huge self-worth issue around being a man and stepping fully into manhood. What does that mean? It means allowing yourself to fully honor and see yourself as the beautiful man that you are, and in the beautiful presence that you provide, and trusting in that and giving that lovingly. And my dad did not have a father, so there's very clear understanding there. And his father also wasn't really
Because
there.
he most likely we learn manhood or womanhood from our mom or our dad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've been on my Instagram page, I think.
That's fascinating. Fascinating. So now we know there is like a way to handle that. Working with an expert is one way to do it, but also is there any like a routine or something that we can consider in for someone who, let's say, don't have access to this or waiting till want to start with something on their own? Is there anything they can do?
Absolutely. So I highly recommend to check out our new platform Feel, which is an emotion release platform, because we need to heal in community.
Yeah.
We're living in a society that's punishing authenticity. It means you show yourself and somebody stabs you even more. This is the problem. We have created a community space that it honors and values authenticity to open that up. And in that community space, it's actually not, this is secondary, it's a community. We have online releases. We have all these releases that are very difficult to do on your own. We have the anger release, we have psychosomatic releases that works on your symptoms. We have how to work on joy. So there's often a lot of people suppressing so much joy in their life. They have no more access to lightness. Their life feels like a struggle, an uphill battle. That's not how your life is supposed to feel.
100%.
So I highly recommend, if this resonates with you, to check out our
Lovely.
platform
Yeah,
Feel.
totally.
That just
We'll put
launched.
it in the show notes as well for everyone.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
So now we spoke about emotions and diseases.
Yes.
How is this also related to addictions?
Yes, addictions are very, very interesting. Addictions are always connected to a desire, something, an unmet need that wasn't processed. What you're addicted to is hinting at what is not integrated in your system. So different.
What are the most common addictions that people, let's say, struggle with?
The thing is, addiction is a fundamental issue. It's not just you can think I'm addicted to something, but we're all addicted. We're
Yeah.
all addicted to
Yeah,
states.
totally, of
So we're
course.
addicted to comfortable states, and we want to avoid uncomfortable states. And so we already have addiction built into our nervous system. But then, of course, it manifests in different things. You could have addiction to food. You could have addiction to pornography. You could have addiction to cocaine, to alcohol. All these represent different things. Let's start with something with alcohol, for example. Alcohol addiction is connected to not being able to drop your your over responsible mind and drop into a more primal and childlike version of yourself. So there's a strong desire to let go, let loose, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
be a child, but that's repressed in your daily life. The life you're living is not supporting that version of you.
Yeah.
So you're using alcohol to tap into a more free version of yourself. So that's essentially what's happening there. Smoking is connected with a sense of loneliness, often a sense of disconnection to people. And this smoking is like also a social drug that's used to kind of compensate and bridge this inherent loneliness. And I'm not talking about like this person has been super abandoned and super left alone. This is more severe, but the
It's more
general
the
sense
emotion, right? The
of
sense of,
longing
yeah.
and loneliness that's not being filled, and we don't feel supported. Many people don't feel supported walking their path, and that's what shows up as loneliness. You step into this field of your purpose, you step into this field of what you're doing, and you feel all of a sudden quite alone and not understood in this is why many people bridge that feeling with smoking tobacco. Another one is a weed addiction. People who have weed addiction often have an overly masculine energy. So they are struggling actually to tap into their feminine. So weed is supporting people who tap into a more deep sense of softness and femininity.
Because they also like they tap into creativity and things like that. If I'm not, I think
Yeah.
it's the feminine side.
Absolutely, and it's actually
Yeah.
helpful for some people who are too masculine. It really can help them to tap more into femininity. What are some other addictions? Heroin is kind of like there's a fundamental, like almost fetal lack of nurturing and care in babies in how they were brought up. There's a lack of this warm mothering nature that was just missing, and they never got it. And so when they get to heroin, they just can't stop because it gives them everything that this little baby inside of them needed.
But it's really lovely to look at this because you somehow it helps you like not to judge the other person, right?
Exactly.
Like how much like now first when you started saying heroin, I was like, that's a bit extreme. Like who is that? Let's say in my mind, although I tried not to be judgmental, it's like who's that person who went that far? But see how you have explained it. It's so beautiful.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. Behind every negative pattern
Yeah.
lies a potential. You know, we all want to get over our shadow. But the problem is nobody is getting over their shadow. You're not getting over your naggy sides, the sides that you don't like about yourself, the parts that you're ashamed of. You're not getting over them. Nobody is getting over them. That's not how healing works. What's happening is that we want to integrate them. And integration means we're allowing them to exist within us. We're creating a space inside of us where they're allowed to exist because this part of me is intelligent. The part of me that is addicted is intelligent. The part of me that's dissociated is intelligent. The part of me that's rude is intelligent. It just hasn't been given the space it needs. So everything inside, the only thing we can do, nothing works that's trying to remove something. Anything that you're trying to push away, anything that you're trying to remove is not healing by a default. So it doesn't work. It just doesn't work to try to become a better version away from this shadow side. It does not work. We have to work with what we find so ugly, so disgusting,
Accept
so
it.
annoying about ourselves. And also, by the way, these are usually the things that we find annoying about our parents. They live inside of us. So we want to push them away. But the only thing we can do is create a place for them within us. And when we accept them and unshame these parts and really welcome them, then and only then they show themselves as actually a huge potential, something wonderful that we didn't actually see. For example, jealousy. If we are jealous, for example, or if we are aggressive, for example, all of these are parts that you need actually. So jealousy is just showing you that you, for example, you get jealous of how somebody is, with your boyfriend, talking to them or whatever. It's just showing you that you want to be there. That's jealousy is just a sign that you want to express what they're expressing. It's actually you care about this. You want to be that, but you're not allowing that. You're pushing it away from yourself. So it's just a messenger again, showing you aggressiveness. If you find yourself too aggressive or too shameful, all of that, it's just showing you that you actually need to allow yourself to care more and to go for what you really, really want. So you don't have to hold it back anymore.
That's amazing. So just to understand, you mentioned the with the jealousy. So it sounds that jealousy is more like it's what you're longing for, or it's your potential.
Yeah, it's what you're longing for.
What
You
you're
are longing
longing
for your potential. No?
You're longing for your
So
potential.
what are you jealous of? Let me
Yeah.
name one thing you're jealous of, for example.
I find, for example, okay, that divas agitating.
Divas.
Divas.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do you find agitating about divas?
Because they very effortlessly demand, very confidently, let's say, demand something that maybe can be perceived like it's too much.
Yes. Okay. So this is very simple, right? You don't allow yourself to demand what you really want. You put yourself on a second seat and you watch as other people get what they want. And you're so annoyed by that. And you don't allow that because you judge it as negative. But actually, it's so good. When you get what you want, the whole room will light up. When you get what you want, the people, the family, your friends, they
It's
win.
actually the annoying part is
Yeah.
like everyone is okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So if you allow yourself to be that diva, the planet will be better off.
I like that. How about food addiction?
Food addiction.
Yeah.
Yes, so food is highly connected to the oral consumption. So we have, and Freud also talked about the oral stage of development in children. The mouth, the consuming. So it's really much connected to the stage of the mother. Where do we first eat? We eat breast milk, right?
Yeah.
So food addiction becomes either a problem for people who haven't been nurtured enough, who are lacking having this emptiness, and they find this as a way to soothe, or they have been nurtured too much and only through that. So they find a way to deal with overwhelm and stress. They just take sugar. They just take this addiction to food and consuming to cover.
So it's a way of nurturing themselves, or this is how they think it is?
It's a way of nurturing ourselves, but it's essentially a limited coping strategy. So we don't know how to deal with it better. The inner baby, the young baby, that the 1 to 2 year old child in us finds so much soothing in that, because that baby hasn't actually grown out of that. So that baby hasn't learned to get really full, really satiated, really satisfied. So every time there's dysregulation, this lack comes back. And we don't notice that lack. All we notice is an intense craving for more food. This is, by the way, with every addiction. We don't notice the lack, what is actually lacking in the developmental stage. So how old we were, what we were been lacking, we don't feel that lack. What we feel is an intense craving. But when you work with someone, with neo-emotional release, the method I do, and you put them on the table and you go back into it, you find underneath a deep, deep unheld longing, a helplessness, a loneliness, that a loss of connection. So addiction is almost always, and universally, a longing for connection. That's the universal component of almost all addictions.
That's very, when you realize that there is a simple solution to that compared to just keep repeating your whole life. A lot of people just live their entire life not realizing that they can get out of this.
Exactly. But then also we have to be very careful, because what most people do is they already judge themselves. They already say, I know that I shouldn't do this. I know I should go walking more. I know I should go running more. I know I shouldn't eat this burger. That's also a problem. That's a huge trap. Don't do this. Because why? When you shame anything you're doing, be it an addiction, be it a negative habit, be it anything that you're doing, judging it negatively, you are disconnecting yourself from the very intelligence that lives underneath that action. Your body is vastly intelligent. There's an intelligence, there's a little part of you, a little boy, a little girl, that needs something deeper, that's trying to get it through this addiction, through this negative habit. Don't shame that the need is there. Maybe the behavior, how you're doing it, how you're getting that is not so good, but the actual need needs to be addressed. And if we shame the whole thing, the behavior, everything, we disconnect ourselves further. And this is simply, it doesn't work. This kind of Will Smith or Hollywood or kind of
Yeah.
give me 10 push-ups and I need to just work harder, harder, harder. It simply doesn't work. You cannot push yourself like David Goggins. You cannot push, like, you, of course you can try to go very extreme and get rid of all the uncomfortable, the pleasurable instinct, and only discipline yourself, but this is not realistic for most people, because you cut yourself off from the intelligence within each and every impulse you have in your body. It's way better to honor that impulse, honor where you are at,
And work
and
through
work
it.
through it. That's what I recommend.
Yeah. Since we are reaching the end, do you have a favorite quote or a saying or a motto that you live by, or you?
The universe is not moving from imperfection to perfection. It's moving from perfection to perfection.
Can you say more about this?
It's from Osho.
David, it was really lovely having you today. I'm sure that, like, each and every person will resonate with a piece of this episode. I'm too grateful for you. Just to sum things up, how can people reach you? I will put everything in the show note, but just share your main channels for anyone who would like to connect with you.
Absolutely, that's enough. I hope I will see you on our new emotion release platform, Feel, to connect more with our community.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.